is
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in for a super relevant, super important topic, saving money on supplements. Because just like everything else out there with food costs, supplements are being affected too, especially when you use food supplements. Even more so of a concern, herbs that are imported from all over the world, every continent, like we do. We use herbs from, just about every country you can imagine, and shipping costs increasing, food costs increasing. So it's more important than ever before to know how to be able to minimize your supplement program to the most important streamlined things to maintain optimal health. There's seasons of life where you need more supplements and you just can't avoid it. We'll see some of the reasons for that on the next slide. But when we're talking about a long-term maintenance supplement program, the goal really is to get to as few of things possible in supplement bottle pill form that you absolutely could not get from the diet. That would be impossible to get from the diet. So before we get into those things we really can easily avoid, these are some stressors that sometimes you may not be able to avoid, and it's just going to make you need more supplements. And number one on the list, stress. So I've been doing this now coming up on 30 years in this. Hard to believe, but 30 years, providing nutritional supplements to help people get back on track. And stress really is the single biggest factor that makes people need more nutritional and herbal supplements. And that's okay, but hopefully it's just a short, life storm. We all have life storms that we got to go through. And during those life storms that may last weeks, months, hopefully not more than a couple months, you see nutritional needs skyrocket tremendously. Adrenal gland support, minerals, basic vitamin, especially the B vitamins that we're going to talk about later, sleep support, digestion support, immune support, everything goes up. Like when your body's not managing stress, it's the most expensive thing nutritionally. And that's why knowing how to deal with stress and get more peace in your life and avoid stress is very important with cutting supplement costs. But sometimes, this is one of those things you just can't avoid. Sometimes there's going to be a couple weeks where you need as much stress support supplement wise as possible. The second thing, this is another challenge you may not be able to avoid, is your health history. And even more so, you can't avoid your genetics. Some of you right now are saying, oh, yeah, that's me. My genetics are not doing me any favors. And I know that feeling. Genetics probably is one of the biggest things that got me into doing clinical nutrition and standard process specifically. I was way behind on a growth spurt. My pituitary gland wasn't working, and all these different health problems that really, seem to be a strong genetic link in my family. And there's supplements sometimes you need to override those genetics that you just can't avoid. With health history, things like surgeries, if you've had your gallbladder removed for the rest of your life, you're probably going to need to take bile salt supplements to digest your fat. Some of you are taking the supplement Cholacol, that's a bile salt, to compensate for not having a gallbladder. If you're a woman that's had a complete hysterectomy, you're definitely going to need more hormone balance support to compensate for that lack of estrogen and progesterone. If you had a serious head injury history, concussions, closed head injuries of any kind, you're probably going to need more brain nutritional supplement support. And that's not, terribly expensive to do that, but that's just to show that your health history influences how many supplements you need, how big that handful of pills is that you have to take. This is one that definitely is going to influence your supplement needs that we have the picture of here. Many of you listening still have silver fillings, which really have a high percentage of mercury. And mercury is a really nasty toxin that greatly increases supplement needs. We'll do a whole webinar on this topic someday and like all the different dentistry options that are popping up now to deal with this. You have to do it right if you do want to remove these. But when you do have these silver fillings, every single time you chew, and they've proven this with videos that show the vapor with special camera and background. You're going to have mercury vapors that are released into your body that depletes zinc, that makes you need more mineral support in general, detoxification support, brain support. Mercury just does a lot of damage. Wow, this is depressing to start with. I promise next week is going to be a lot less depressing, more of a positive video, because we're going to talk more about things like superfoods, really healthy foods that minimize supplement needs. But we got to talk about just a brief overview of the nasty things we're all exposed to out there that are all influencing, again, how big this handful of supplements needs to be. So if you're in Florida, this next one definitely affects you. Mold. Um, Mold is a major factor in how many supplements you're going to need. If you've got mold overload, mold sensitivities, you're going to need more immune system support. You're going to need more inflammation support, supplementation, brain support, binder support, binding supplements that actually help bind to these mycotoxins from mold. So again, that deserves its own webinar someday. Just setting the stage for all the things we're exposed to. This one is really depressing. This next one, flame retardants. Every single one of you watching this, everyone in the country, this has been proven with multiple tests. Everybody is carrying flame retardants in their body. If we do a blood test, we're all going to test positive for these brominated flame retardants. Now, the reason we have these flame retardants, it was good intention. These flame retardants were added to a lot of products like our mattresses, electronics, baby products like baby cribs, clothing, on and on, to minimize fire risk. But the problem is those flame retardants break down over time. They're made of bromide. We absorb those, and those do a lot of nasty things like cancer risk increase. But one of the biggest things they do that I see day in and day out is they make us need more of the mineral iodine. Those flame retardants specifically block iodine from working in the body. Along those lines, bromide that's in flame retardants is a very close cousin to the chlorine and fluoride that we're all exposed to in our water. And maybe you use a filter, and that's a great first step, like a reverse osmosis filter, but then you're still getting it in your shower. If you do hot showers and you've got that nice steam from the hot shower, you're breathing in chlorine, and that chlorine is blocking iodine. That chlorine is killing your friendly probiotics. Fluoride, toothpaste, medications that, we're going to talk about medications later, how those make us need more supplements. Bromide, fluoride, and chlorine are three things we're all exposed to that are making us need more iodine. It's why I give every single patient supplemental iodine from seaweed, because these are unavoidable toxins. We're talking tonight about the things we can avoid, that we can minimize, but chlorine, fluoride, bromide, we all have it. So if anybody's still listening after those depressing stats, let's talk about the things we can avoid. And this is the biggie. When you're talking about minimizing your supplement needs, this is the game changer. This is the make or break factor of whether you're going to need a small handful of food and herbal supplements or a big handful or two handfuls of supplements, is refined sugar and carbohydrates. This is it. And the vast majority of new patients that I work with, when I'm looking at their blood work or their symptom intake form, this one factor probably is responsible for about 50% of the supplementation that they need to get their health back. 50%. And I see it all the time that if people just cut this out of their diet, they're usually able to cut their nutritional supplement needs by at least 30%. So let's talk about the reasons why this junk stuff, we all know it's not good for us. We all know it makes us gain weight. We don't feel as good with it. But we're going to go through the exact reasons why these foods, if we can call them foods, keep me in business. These foods literally keep me in business. If everybody was on a low carb ketogenic diet, we probably would have to close up shop, because that's how much of a factor this has in bringing new patients into our office and people needing nutritional supplements. And look at America, our sugar consumption every single day. On average, we eat 126 grams of sugar per day. Compare that to Germany coming in second at 102 grams. Netherlands, number three, 102 grams. So USA, by about 20%, beats the next closest competitor. So everybody chant with me, we're number one. We're number one. And we always will be with sugar consumption. We're always going to be the top in the world in sugar, refined flour, white sugar, all this garbage. So we need to really get a hold of this concept that it's not just high sugar that's killing us and making us need much more supplements than we really should. It's high levels of the hormone insulin. This is creating just as much of a nutritional supplement need and just as much damage in the body as high sugar. So you've all heard the term now, insulin resistance. Everybody's heard the term, but very few people really understand fundamentally what insulin resistance is, and even fewer people know what their insulin resistance status is. Nobody gets their insulin hormone levels checked from their medical doctor. This is the most mind-blowing thing to me. Insulin is the biggest hormone that's screwing people up in the US today, and nobody gets it checked. They get their thyroid hormones checked, they get their blood sugar checked, but knowing what your insulin is one of the top 5 important pieces of health information to know. By the way, we have it available for $20 through LabCorp. If you've never had your insulin checked, shoot me an email, health-news@comcast.net, and we'll make sure that we get you this as either by itself getting your insulin checked or as part of a comprehensive, blood panel. So what's going on in America today? I love this picture. This really shows it perfectly. We eat a lot of junk carbs. That carbohydrate and sugar in our blood tells your pancreas to release more insulin. And that hormone insulin, its biggest job is to drive sugar and other nutrients, protein, amino acids, into your cells. So insulin is like the carrier hormone to take sugar from your blood and drive it into your cells so your body can use it as energy, so that there's not too much sugar in your blood, like a diabetic situation. That's just some of the big functions of insulin. But the problem is in America, we eat so much sugar. Let's go back to our graph here. 126 grams of sugar. We eat about 150 pounds of wheat flour per year. That's more than ever in history. We've never done levels of bread like that before. It's like a major science experiment that's going on right now with the sugar and flour consumption. So we've got this constant stimulation to our pancreas of the hormone insulin. And what happens is when we're stimulating insulin day in and day out with these carbs and sugar, and we're, not just eating 2 or 3 meals, but we're eating 5, 6 meals, grazing, snacking all day, we're just drowning in insulin. And what happens then is your cells become desensitized to insulin. It's almost like so the more insulin that's released, the more you store fat. And that alone makes you need much more nutritional supplementation. The more body fat you carry, the more inflammation you have. The more inflammation you have, the more cardiovascular problems you have, the more brain problems you have. It's a vicious, vicious cycle. But insulin also increases your blood pressure. This is a big part of what's making people need more blood pressure medication and blood pressure nutritional supplements. We're going to see on the next slide, insulin is very inflammatory by itself. High levels of insulin, even if your blood sugar is normal, will put you in a high pain situation. So a lot of people's pain supplements that they need, like turmeric, fish oil, hemp oil, boswellia, frankincense, all these things that people take for getting their joint pain down. I see it all the time. If they can fix their insulin resistance, they usually can cut their pain supplements or medications in half just by fixing this. That's how much of a profound influence insulin resistance has on inflammation. And so, besides storing fat, insulin is the main fat storage hormone. Insulin makes you more hungry. So, you talk about being super expensive. Let's forget about supplements for a second. When you have insulin resistance, you're never satisfied. You're always hungry. You're always looking for the next snack. So your grocery bills are going to be probably double what they should be because you're never satisfied. Instead of 2 meals a day, you're eating at least 3 meals a day and snacking throughout the day. You're always looking for that extra snack to get your energy up, to get your mood up. When you fix insulin resistance, your grocery bill is going to go down dramatically. Even if you're buying, more expensive things like protein, meat that's more expensive than, junk carbs, in the long run, you're just going to buy less food. You're not going to be as hungry if you can fix this insulin resistance. So that we could go on and on about this. I definitely would want to refer you to Dr. Eric Berg's YouTube videos on insulin resistance and how many health problems it's at the root cause of. I can't stress that enough. This is the biggest thing that's controllable, that you have complete control over, that's increasing your supplement needs. So if you want to see how insulin resistance, where the rubber meets the road, how it's affecting people day in and day out, look at our diabetes and prediabetes levels now. 37 million Americans diagnosed as full tilt type 2 diabetics. 1 in 5 don't know they have it. 1 in 10 people are diabetic now. So remember, the population of the US is about 330 million. So that's 10% of the population. But look down below. This is the scary thing. Prediabetes, and we could substitute the word prediabetes with insulin resistance. People that may not have sky high blood sugar, but their insulin is sky high. Look at the numbers of prediabetes in the US. This is what I see every single day in my office. 96 million Americans, more than 1 in 3, are prediabetic. More than 8 in 10 adults with prediabetes don't even know they have it. And this is why we do blood work with everybody. The only way to know this is with good blood testing. Again, that doesn't just check your blood sugar, but checks your fasting insulin. I'm betting if you haven't had it done through our office, I'm betting everybody that's listening to this, you've never had your fasting insulin checked. It's so mind blowing. Nobody, even diabetic specialists, medical doctors, they just don't test it. And this is how you find out if you're on the road to diabetes long before you become diabetic. So let's go back to pain and insulin resistance. This was a guy that came in a couple years ago. He wasn't even very overweight, pretty thin guy, but his big complaint was joint pain everywhere: elbows, knees, low back, neck, muscles. So we did blood work on him. This top blood test you see here, you probably heard of this blood test, C-reactive protein. That's the best blood test for measuring inflammation. So his is pretty high. Anything above 1 with C-reactive protein is pretty high for inflammation. His is 5, so 5 times, the optimal level of inflammation. But down below, you can see what's driving that inflammation. We checked his insulin. And again, every time you eat carbs and sugar, you get a spike of insulin. His insulin was 60. Um, the normal level that LabCorp will flag insulin as being a problem is when it gets over 25. You can see that on the far right, the reference interval. When it gets above 25, it will flag insulin as being too high. But in reality, if you're fasting insulin, and this is why it's so important to have this blood test done, especially if you're trying to cut down your supplement needs. If your fasting insulin is over 5, you've got a problem. So his fasting insulin is over 10 times the optimal level, what it should be for health. And it's no wonder his whole body is racked with pain. With that much insulin, he's going to be in a constant state of inflammation. So yes, I definitely gave him turmeric forte, most important supplement for inflammation. But we also made a strong emphasis on him cutting out the bread, the pasta. I think he was drinking a few sodas at the time, drinking beers with carbohydrates, all those things, and got completely out of pain. It wasn't even an expensive program for him. Little turmeric forte, low carb diet, that did it all. If that doesn't get a guy's attention getting out of pain, this will. I know many of you women that are listening, it's so frustrating because it's so hard to get guys to get motivated to take care of themselves. They are absolutely awful at self-preservation. It's because they're so tough and just keep going, and they have to be on death's door. And sometimes even that's not enough to wake them up to take care of their health. But this might get their attention. Having insulin resistance, blood sugar problems, being diabetic, pre-diabetic, is a testosterone killer. It will drive your testosterone into the toilets, and you can see it with this blood test here. So here's a guy, his triglycerides. Now, by the way, we're going to do a lot more webinars on this with our Monday night webinars, but high triglycerides is one of the most reliable blood tests for insulin resistance. It's part of a cholesterol panel, but it's not a cholesterol problem. It's a sugar problem. And this is one of the earliest blood tests that show up that lets you know you've got blood sugar problems. So his triglycerides are through the roof. His hemoglobin A1C, which is the last 3 months of how much damage is being done from blood sugar, that's getting too high. And look at his testosterone is rock bottom low, 103. Again, testosterone, even though LabCorp doesn't flag it as being too low till it gets below 264. And this is worth writing down. This is something that can change your life. Guys, if you're listening, or women, to tell your husbands, the optimal range of testosterone, if you want to feel good as a man, energy, libido, mood, belly fat, all those things, bare minimum, you want your total testosterone at 500, and probably even 600, 700. But let's just say 500 conservative would be the bare minimum. His is 100. His free testosterone is really low. So I'm not saying that getting rid of sugar and going on a low carb keto diet is going to fix all testosterone problems, but it's a very good place to start. Within the next few months, we're going to do a whole testosterone webinar on just some really simple things you can do that are well proven to turn these type of blood tests around and regain your vitality. But sugar, great place to start. And by the way, you've got a lot of guys doing testosterone injections out there right now, but if they're not cleaning up the diet, if they're not fixing these blood sugar problems, it's not going to work. They're still going to feel just as lethargic, just as low mood, all those things. All right, if that isn't enough to get you motivated to get a handle on your sugar problems, I hope this will do it. Having high blood sugar and insulin resistance literally shrinks your brain. So this is, most of you have heard of Dr. Perlmutter, David Perlmutter. This is from his website, drperlmutter.com. He's got many articles and videos on this, but I love this picture the most. This is a graph showing how much your brain actually shrinks over time in direct relationship to how high your hemoglobin A1C is. So the average hemoglobin A1C when I do blood tests with people is this third column, 5.6 to 5.8. That's like the average. Even people that aren't diabetic, and you can see your brain is shrinking too fast if your blood sugar's at that level. If your last 3 months of sugar is at that A1C mark. A better zone would be 5.3 to 5.5. I don't see that very much. Very few people have that low A1C in my practice. But even at that level, your brain is still shrinking at an accelerated rate. This is the sweet spot for you to preserve your brain, keep your brain power as long as you can as you age. You want your hemoglobin A1C between 4.4 and 5.2. Again, I don't see that very often. That's my A1C, but I don't see it with my patients. It's very, very rare. So if you want to keep your brain, if you want to minimize the amount of brain supplements you have to take, things like ribonucleic acid, ginkgo, the herb bacopa, these things are great, but the more sugar problems you have, the more supplements you're going to have to guzzle just to put out the fire with this brain shrinkage, brain inflammation, dementia, all these different things. In fact, if you want to really sum up the motivation to get off sugar for your brain and why the older you are, the more important it is to get a handle on your sugar, every neurodegenerative disease at its root, it's driven by blood sugar problems, whether it's Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, early onset dementia. It's not that it's the end all be all root cause, but there's always blood sugar problems in the background that's driving and accelerating those brain issues. That's why many of you have heard Alzheimer's disease is now called, the other term for it is type 3 diabetes or Alzheimer's of the brain. That's how strong of a link there is between blood sugar problems and Alzheimer's. Wow, scary stuff. So get a handle on the sugar. So let's say, let's take all that stuff off the table: testosterone, brain shrinkage, pain. Let's say it's just a teenager that doesn't have any of those health problems, but just a healthy person eating sugar. These are the nutrients that are going to be depleted. This is why, even kids that are eating more sugar are going to need more supplements just to feel good and be healthy. These are the nutrients that you can think of sugar as being like a vacuum that just sucks those nutrients out of the body. Or a better way to describe it is you're going to pee these nutrients out much more excessively when you're eating a lot of sugar and flour. Number one is, the mineral that you can't go online now with seeing some headline about a new study where magnesium is found, to be important for sleep for this reason, for mood, for cognitive function, for PMS, whatever it is. We're going to see magnesium is a critical mineral for over 300 enzymes in your body. And at least 70% of the American population is deficient in it for two big reasons. One, the more sugar and flour you eat, the more magnesium you lose. But you can see from this picture, one of the biggest foods, the most important food for replacing magnesium in our body, are green leafy vegetables. And you can see avocados are a good one too, but green leafy vegetables are where we should be getting magnesium from, the vast majority of it. No better food source than magnesium. And they've done studies that have shown that magnesium, when you eat magnesium from a food source, any kind of green leafy vegetable, whether that's in a whole food supplement or eating it, the magnesium is actually absorbed better into the brain than any magnesium that's on the market. So food, surprise, surprise, food always works better to get these nutrients. But most of us, and I'm the most guilty person of all, nobody gets enough green leafy vegetables. Even if we did have a low sugar, low carb diet, none of us eat enough green leafy vegetables. But when you're eating a lot of sugar, there's no way you're going to be able to keep up with the magnesium that's being depleted by all that sugar you're eating. So you definitely need to take more supplements. You're going to be spending more money on magnesium supplements when you're eating a high sugar diet. So there's again, magnesium is the fourth most abundant mineral in the body, acts as a cofactor for more than 300 enzymes. Studies suggest that between 50 to 75% of Americans do not meet the recommended dietary allowance of magnesium. I'd say it's 80 to 90%. I give every single one of my patients whole food magnesium because nobody gets enough green leafy vegetables. And what you see here is a picture of Swiss chard or beet leaf. It's, one and the same vegetable. Some of you eat it, but it's not very common. This is the main ingredient of our supplement Easy Mag. Easy Mag. So Easy Mag is just very concentrated green leafy vegetables, Swiss chard and buckwheat leaf. 6 tablets is equivalent to about a pound of green leafy vegetables. And the reason I made the decision about 3 years ago to give almost everybody, if not Easy Mag, something with green leafy vegetables is just realizing nobody is ever going to consistently eat the amount of green leafy vegetables that our magnesium demands are today, with more stress, with more sugar. If you want a really depressing reason why we need more magnesium than ever before, this is getting really deep in the weeds. The electromagnetic pollution stress that we're exposed to, our Wi-Fi, cell phone towers, that is something that actually puts more demands on our magnesium reserves. Magnesium is the most important mineral to help minimize the oxidative free radical damage from that ionizing radiation from those sources, those electromagnetic stress sources. So green leafy vegetables more important than ever before. It's one reason I give it as a supplement to everybody. But my goal is, like, for example, if I've given Easy Mag to everybody, my goal is to get people to maybe like 3 tablets of Easy Mag per day. But the average American needs like 6 tablets because of what they're not eating with green leafies and all the sugar and flour that they already. Another thing sugar depletes is potassium. So you may have experienced this after a high sugar meal. Like if you go to that low carb restaurant, Olive Garden, one night and you get a low carb meal, being very sarcastic, you can tell, pasta, breadsticks, glass of wine, lasagna, dessert at the end, and you leave the table in like a carbohydrate coma, stupor, and you're exhausted. You're like, oh, I can't wait to go to bed. But you lay down in bed, and right when you lay down, your heart just starts racing, just pounding away. That's because just one big meal of carbohydrates and sugar will deplete your potassium reserves. And surprise, surprise, where do we get potassium from? It's not bananas. That's a big myth. That's a very weak, inferior way to get potassium. It's green leafy vegetables, green vegetables, and again, you see avocados. So it's another reason I give Easy Mag to everybody to compensate for the potassium that's being lost with sugar and flour. This is the big one. This is like the life-altering one. The biggest thing I see every single day from sugar and white flour, carbohydrates, all that stuff, it is a B vitamin killer. You just pee out your B vitamins so fast when you're eating those foods. And that greatly affects, I think even more than the magnesium, affects your mood, your brain, your energy. B vitamins are the fuel for the nervous system. It's what creates the electrical energy in your nervous system. And we see those deficiencies pop up in so many areas. So next week, we're going to talk about why this beautiful, disgusting food you see on the left, liver, is one of the top 5 foods you can eat to minimize your supplement needs. I always get ask the question, what foods can I eat to minimize my supplement needs? If you're serious about that, liver is not even top 5. It is the top food you could eat to minimize your supplement needs. We're going to see next week, it is the most nutrient dense food on the planet. It is a multivitamin in its own right. And that's why I don't give multivitamins to people. I usually give them liver pills, supplements that contain liver because nobody eats liver anymore. But this is such a double whammy because we've removed liver from our diet, but at the same time, we're eating more sugar and flour than ever before. So we are all starving in B vitamins. This is a universal deficient vitamin in the U.S. And this is where I see it every day: fatigue. This next one's a cruel one. The more sugar and carbs you eat, the more B vitamins you lose. The more B vitamins you lose, the more sugar and carbs you crave. The more sugar and carbs you crave, the more you eat, and it's a vicious, vicious cycle. So the foundational supplement I give people to cut their carb and sugar cravings are just liver pills, getting liver back in their diet. It doesn't work for everybody, but about 50% of people with cravings, it's phenomenal. This is one I see all the time. When you've got B vitamin deficiencies caused by eating too much sugar, you can't stay asleep at night. You may be able to fall asleep, you're exhausted and you fall asleep, but you just pop awake and you can't go back to sleep. Many, many times, just B vitamins. This next one is the biggie. And if you have this, make sure you call, set up an appointment, or shoot me an email because this is so important and usually so ridiculously easy to fix. But it's a big deal. You should never feel your heart. And when you've got heart palpitations, the vast majority of times it's because of a B vitamin deficiency that's affecting your nerve firing in the heart. And usually, again, just liver pills provides those whole food B vitamin factors that give the nervous system and the heart what it needs. Irritability, your stress tolerance is just super low. I see this all the time where people tell me like, it's usually moms, like, the stuff that my family was doing to annoy me, it wasn't a big deal. Like 3 weeks ago, I could handle it, and now it's just every little thing. It feels like it's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. B vitamins is always part of the protocol that I use with them for that. And it works. It works phenomenally well. Like noise sensitivity, all of a sudden you just can't handle strong light. You jump easier with noise. This next one is huge in our diabetic country, our pre-diabetic and diabetic epidemic, and that is numbness and neuropathy. Again, the more sugar you eat, the more B vitamins you lose. And when you have a long-standing B vitamin deficiency, you're going to eventually develop neuropathies. And you don't want to get neuropathy. I mean, at first it starts as a little annoyance, but I've had people come in with neuropathy in their 80s that it literally has made them suicidal from how much pain, unrelenting pain and discomfort. And again, diabetes and B vitamin deficiencies are two of the biggest driving factors that are driving neuropathy. And once you have neuropathy, it's not easy to turn around. It's not as easy as just taking B vitamins and getting the sugar out. You've got to do hyperbaric oxygen. You've got to do PEMF. You've got to do a lot of things to reverse the damage. It's so much easier to prevent neuropathy. And again, the biggest thing you have control over to do that is get your sugar under control. So this is the biggest weapon I use to counteract B vitamin deficiencies caused by sugar consumption and caused by people not eating liver anymore. And that's Catapug's B Core. When you look on the ingredient label, that's the first ingredient is bovine liver. So yes, it is the best B vitamin supplement, whole food B vitamin supplement that we offer. But more importantly, it's our most concentrated way to get liver in tablet form. So it's the easiest way to get liver back in your diet because let's face it, nobody's going to eat liver. So I give Catapug's B Core to everybody, even if you're not eating sugar, because everybody needs liver. But the more sugar you eat, the more Catapug's B Core you need. So you see the recommended dose on the bottle is 2 tablets per day. If you're eating a really good diet and you're getting B vitamins from other sources, 2 tablets is perfect. But if you're under high stress, you're eating a lot of sugar, especially eating a lot of sugar and carbs, I see people need 8 cataplex B core a day, 10 per day, just to keep up with those deficiencies. So it can get expensive just with this one supplement for how much extra B vitamins you need from eating sugar. Liver, another motivation to either eat liver or take it in supplement form and things like cataplex B core. Liver is the best food source of zinc. And guess what zinc is depleted by? Sugar. Sugar and white flour. The more sugar you eat, the more zinc you lose. So that's why you see a picture of a liver here. It's the best food source of it. Another great source that we just don't eat a lot is oysters. Liver and oysters. Those are the two big sources. By the way, something that is really easy because zinc deficiency is just as rampant as B vitamin deficiency. It's just as rampant as magnesium deficiency. And there's a really easy, cheap test. We do it for free in our office. It's the zinc taste test. It's actually just a zinc solution that you can swish around in your mouth. And depending on what the taste reaction is that you get from swishing that around, it's a very accurate indicator of how much zinc you have in your body to work with. Zinc is critical for your immune system, guys, for prostate health, for skin health, for hormonal balance in men and women. So this zinc taste test, again, it's cheap, it's very accurate. And if you swish that zinc solution around and you get no taste reaction, it means you're low in zinc and you need to start taking liver pills or eat lots of liver to get that zinc back. So again, this is another consequence of a high sugar, high carb diet, zinc deficiency. Calcium, that may surprise you. One of the biggest reasons we have a growing problem all the time of osteoporosis, bone fractures, our bones are becoming more and more fragile, is because we live on sugar and flour. And the more sugar we eat, the more calcium we lose. Now, you see all these pictures of dairy products, and yes, dairy has calcium, but the tragedy in America is, what do we do to all this dairy before we have access to it? We pasteurize it, we heat it to very high temperatures, so we lose a lot of the calcium. And more importantly, we lose the enzymes that are necessary to utilize the calcium. So next week, we're going to talk about why drinking raw milk or doing raw dairy products that haven't been pasteurized is one of the top 5 foods to minimize your supplement needs. You're not going to need as much calcium supplementation if you do raw dairy. You're not going to need as much probiotic support. You're not going to need as much protein, amino acid supplementation, immune supplement. I mean, it is one of the most, right up there with liver. Raw milk is a bona fide superfood. But again, the more sugar you eat, the more calcium you lose. That's why you've always heard, drinking soda, eating candy causing cavities, because it sucks the calcium out of the teeth and it sucks it out of the bones. Vitamin D is depleted with sugar, on and on and on. So I hope I've painted a depressing enough picture of, just how much nutrition is lost with sugar consumption, how much extra supplementation you need, and how much sugar is behind so many other, or why it's the root cause of so many other health issues: low testosterone, hormonal problems, brain problems, digestion problems, you name it. Now, it doesn't just deplete nutrients from the body. That would be bad enough if sugar just depleted all these nutrients, but sugar feeds things that we don't want to grow and increase in the body. And this is a great, disgusting illustration of it, is fungal overgrowth. So after the webinar, go in your bathroom mirror, find a mirror, stick your tongue out, and see if you have this coated white tongue. If you do, then it means sugar over the years, and other factors like antibiotics. Steroids can do this too, antibiotics, but sugar for most people is the big culprit, is feeding the fungus in your digestive tract, the candida, other fungal organisms we don't want growing out of control. And it's creating this yeast overgrowth that you see on the tongue. So you've heard of candida, yeast infection. This is a simple, completely free checkup you can do to see if you have this. And it's very easy to get rid of. Don't get depressed if you have this. There's really specific things you can take to wipe this out within a couple of weeks. But what's funny is we see this the most in January. Why do we see this the most in January? Because people from Halloween, October 31st, Thanksgiving, all the whole month of December, what are they living on? Sugar, sugar, sugar. That feeds the candida yeast overgrowth, and eventually they get this this dysbiosis candida overgrowth that just messes up everything. They're bloated, they have headaches, their immune system screwed up. Really nasty stuff. You don't want to get this candida yeast infection overgrowth. Sugar is a major, major driver. So again, besides stress, this is the biggest factor that I see day in and day out, making people spend much more money unnecessarily than they should on supplements. They need more digestion supplements when they're eating sugar and flour. We haven't even talked about the gluten issues with eating refined carbohydrates, the glyphosate that's in our flour carb products like wheat. Glyphosate's a weed killer that's destroying our guts and making us need lots more probiotics. Just absolutely horrendous toxin that we're all carrying because it's in all of the grain, rice, corn products that are out there now. Digestive enzymes. People need more supplements like Zypan when they're eating carbs and sugar. Probiotics, immune supplements. Nothing will make you more open to infection than sugar. Well, we have to say stress too. Stress will also. But sugar, just because it depletes calcium, zinc, vitamin D, all those things, it's going to make you need a lot more immune supplements. Goes without saying, this is an obvious one, more blood sugar supplements. So I'll give you a great example on this one. We have a phenomenal herbal supplement that we've been using for about 4 years called Metabol Complex. We get it from Australia. It's the most concentrated herbal formula that we have for insulin resistance, diabetes, pre-diabetes, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, belly fat, all the stuff that insulin makes makes worse in the body. It's great. There's nothing like it, but it's not a cheap supplement. I think if you were doing 4 per day, if you weren't getting the bulk discount, that we offer for bulk purchases, it would probably cost like $80 a month to do Metabol Complex. If you don't have blood sugar problems, you don't need Metabol Complex. It's only when you have high insulin, high sugar that you need Metabol. So that's just one example. There's so many blood sugar supplements that people need extra of. I'll give you another great example we see all the time. So I give turmeric forte. We're going to talk a lot about turmeric forte next week because it's a supplement that can actually help minimize the need for other supplements. It's actually kind of an ironic supplement that can cut down other supplements and save you money in other areas. But if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, you need a lot more turmeric forte than you should on a regular basis. So turmeric forte, you should only need 1 to 2 tablets a day for inflammation, detox, brain protection, cancer risk reduction, all the things that we love using that bioavailable turmeric supplement for. But when you've got diabetes or you've got a lot of insulin resistance, you have a lot more inflammation, you've got a lot more tissue destruction and damage, so you need a lot more turmeric forte. The minimum dose I give people that are diabetic is 4 per day. I give a lot of people 6 per day because the house is on fire when they're diabetic. Their brain is inflamed, their blood vessels are inflamed, their joints are inflamed, and sometimes we need a lot of turmeric forte just to keep things in check. And at that point, turmeric forte gets expensive when you start working on those doses. We go on and on about all those things that just for blood sugar, that you're spending more money when you're eating more sugar. Heart support. Cataplex B core is a great example. People that have heart palpitations from B vitamin deficiencies, if they're eating a lot of sugar and flour, corn, white rice, all that stuff, they need a lot higher dose of B core just to correct their palpitations when they should only need like 2 or 3, maybe 4 per day. Um, a lot of heart supplements like that, but B core would be the best example. Mood swings, this is the big one. B core, they need a lot more B core for their mood. They need a lot more Easy Mag, green leafy vegetables, herbal mood tonics like St. John's wort, ashwagandha, rhodiola, a lot more of those things that you need higher doses of, or just need them more in general when you're doing a high sugar, high carb diet. We mentioned brain function. Even people that aren't diabetic or pre-diabetic, you guys have all experienced this. You've eaten a big high carb meal and your brain is just fuzzy for maybe hours after the meal or the whole next day. And the most common feedback I get from people when they do a low carb diet, like when they're really serious about it, the feedback I get from everybody is their brain is sharper. They're not as foggy. They're more focused. It's just the one common benefit everybody seems to get from it. But I've definitely seen that they need more supplements. They spend more money on supplements just for brain function when they're doing a higher sugar diet or they have blood sugar problems, sleep, especially the people that pop awake in the middle of the night, inflammation. We mentioned this with tumor forte. So this is a lot of health problems and a lot of money that you can really dramatically save if you can get a handle on blood sugar issues. So website, my still favorite website for if you've never gone down the rabbit hole of, okay, how do I jump into doing this, is still dietdoctor.com. Just diet, the whole word doctor spelled out.com. It's a totally free website. They're not selling anything. It's mostly for medical doctors that did that, that put that website together with just science-backed information about the benefits of, a low carb lifestyle, why diabetes and prediabetes and insulin resistance is the root cause of almost everything for chronic degenerative diseases today in the US. Lots of great videos, recipes, you name it. There's so many good resources on there. I mentioned Eric Berg's YouTube videos. Just go to YouTube and put Eric Berg in the search. Tons of good info there. But I hope this has really motivated you. Maybe you're not needing a lot of supplements, but you're struggling in a lot of these areas. It's going to help if you can get a handle on the sugar and the flour. Now, we're going to talk more about this supplement combo in seminars down the road, but since it's so important to kick the sugar and the carb habit and the cravings, sometimes you actually need to take supplements to prevent needing more supplements. That may sound weird. You have to temporarily spend money on supplements to avoid supplements in the future. Anything that can get you off of sugar is going to save you money in the long run. And if you already know that sugar has been your downfall, or high carbs, pasta, bread has been your comfort food, white rice, corn, you name it, and you've tried to go off, but it's literally an addiction, and your neurotransmitters like your serotonin, your dopamine just won't let you get off sugar and flour. This is my favorite supplement cocktail to use, usually for about 2 to 3 weeks. It's phenomenal for how well it works to cut sugar cravings. The chromium complex you see here is very similar to Cataplex B Core. It's whole food B vitamins from liver, but it's got a lot more blood sugar support to stabilize blood sugar drops, those low blood sugar drops that make you shaky, hungry, or hangry, and you got to eat something right away. Chromium complex is phenomenal for that. Gymnema, you've probably heard of that. It's becoming more and more popular for sugar cravings, diabetes, but especially for sugar cravings. Fun tip with this, if you really are trying to get off of sugar and you're going to be around some temptation, You can actually dissolve the tablet on your tongue for about 30 seconds. It's really bitter, doesn't taste good. But what it'll do for the next half hour to an hour is it'll actually neutralize the sweet taste buds on your tongue. You will not be able to taste sugar. Gymnema takes away the fun of eating sugar. It just tastes like uh, sandpaper. It doesn't sugar. If you eat the best tasting cookie and you after you put Gymnema on your tongue, you will not taste anything. It removes all pleasure from it. So that's kind of like the emergency way to use Gymnema. If you're going into a Christmas party or a birthday party and you don't want to get off track, dissolve some Gymnema on the tongue. And then this next one, for many of you, this alone will be worth tuning into the webinar. Inositol is the absolute best tool for when sugar or bread, pasta, any of those comfort food carbohydrates is your antidepressant or your anti-anxiety medication. Or put it another way, your cravings are stress emotionally driven. Inositol is so powerful for helping to modulate your neurotransmitters when sugar is your comfort food. So do those 3 supplements for about 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to make a high protein, low carb diet so much easier to jump into. So we're going to cut off right there tonight. When we pick up next week, we're going to talk about another depressing thing that is in so many foods out there. It's probably even harder to avoid than sugar and flour now. And that's the omega-6 vegetable oils that are making us need so much more anti-inflammatory support, more fish oil than we've ever needed before, just to compensate for the damaging effects of these omega-6 oils. We'll end on this depressing slide. Just how much omega-6 seed oils do we get? Or soybean oil specifically. This is just one example. Soybean oil has increased greater than 1,000-fold in the last century, from 1909 to 1999. Now, soybean oil contributes almost 8% of all calories consumed. Almost 8% of all calories consumed are just soybean oil. And that's not to mention even the corn oil, canola oil. And next week, we're going to see how this really screws up our balance with the healthy omega-3 fatty acids and why it's making us need so much more fish oil than we've ever needed before in human history. So next Monday, we're going to pick up right here. I hope this has inspired you to tackle the sugar again, no matter how many times you've tried and failed. We all have. It's normal, but make sure you're taking your B vitamins. That's a huge starting place to make it more manageable to get off the sugar and the flour. That's the biggest thing that we have control over today to minimize our supplement needs. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, guys, and we'll see you next week.